What up, you guys? This is your boy Ace here, and welcome to Retro Warehouse, where we celebrate the old with a spin of the new. So here on Retro Warehouse, I wanted to go over the some ballparks or stadiums that have never been built in the history of Major League Baseball. So very memorable projects that were never brought to fruition or never built. I thought there was some interesting ballparks over the years that were never built. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through quite a few of them and, go over some of the background, and I'll give my thoughts on the back end of it through everyone. And if there's any stadiums that weren't covered in here, please put them in the comment section. I do plan on doing another one in the future and adding some more ballparks to it. I'm not covering all of them here, but I'm going to cover at least, a few of them and, just give them, a quick background on it and then go from there. So let's start in Pittsburgh. Okay. So the Pirates had this very interesting ballpark that they were going to build around the Monongahela River in Pittsburgh. And it was a very, very interesting stadium. So it was one of the most unusual designs for this Pittsburgh Stadium, as they were solving the issue, finding space at the premium locations by being situated directly over the Monongahela River, where the Smithfield Bridge is today, could have stood an entire stadium. Proposed in 1958, the design was futuristic and sleek, and designed to feature two towers intended to be hotels. And you can see that those hotels kind of remind you of the Twin Towers in New York before they came down through the 9/11, complementing the main stadium at the rear. The idea was finally dropped in the 1970s when the planners went on ahead with Three Rivers Stadium, the home of the Steelers and Pirates, for about a good 3 decades before they moved into their stadiums. Heinz Field, which is now called Acrisure Stadium, in PNC Park for the Pirates. So this stadium, like I said, was just very, very uniquely built because it was going to be built right over the river, guys. It was going to be something that was never done before. It was definitely over the top. The plan and vision, like I said, those hotel towers, but it just it never got built. So it was originally going to get built sometime in the 60s. It was proposed in 1958. And like I said, unfortunately, we got the Three Rivers Stadium. So my quick thoughts on this is that this would have been a cool stadium to see get built. The roof looked really cool with the glass structure. I would have loved to have seen those hotels get built right next to it. I would have been very interested to see a stadium built over a bridge. Like, that just would have been so interesting on so many levels, I don't know if that'll ever get done, in the future, if, architects and engineers could figure out a way to do it. But that was such an interesting concept. Obviously, Pittsburgh has two of the more beautiful stadiums right now for the Pirates and Steelers. Heinz Field or Acrisure. I like calling it Heinz Field, but Acrisure Stadium is very, very, it's like a throwback football stadium. And PNC is one of the best ballparks of the modern ballparks that has been made so far. So, they come a long way since the Three Rivers Stadium days, man. So a Pittsburgh Stadium would have been nice, though, if it ever got built. The Brooklyn Dome for the Brooklyn Dodgers. So before the Brooklyn Dodgers moved to L.A., there was actually a proposal of the original Astrodome. It was going to be something that was probably going to get built right before the Astrodome. Would have been the original eighth wonder of the world. Instead of the Astrodome, it would have been the Brooklyn Dome. And you can see from the concepts, it was going to be built adjacent to where the Barclays Center is now. So it was going to be in the heart of Brooklyn. And unfortunately, again, it never got built. So the Dodgers fled to Los Angeles in part because of the plans for the world's first dome stadium never happened. Walter O'Malley proposed a lightweight aluminum structure to cover the stadium between Brooklyn's Atlantic and Flatbush Avenues in 1956. The city discarded the redevelopment of the land, and the team relocated, leaving the Brooklyn Dome on the ash heap of history. So it never got built because city planners disagreed with the redevelopment of the project but it was definitely going to be something that was going to be very unique to baseball and very unique in general because it was going to be the first dome stadium. Now, my thoughts on this is that it would have been cool to see this get built. New York would have had bragging rights to say, hey, we built the first ever dome in the history of pro sports venues, and they would have had the bragging rights over it. And it probably would have kept the Brooklyn Dodgers in Brooklyn to this day. They probably would have still been in Brooklyn to this day. Maybe you never see the New York Mets. I don't know. A lot of this stadium is the main reason why this team ended up moving to LA. So the LA Dodgers might not be in existence right now if this stadium got built. So that's pretty interesting. And I love how it was going to be built where Barclays Center is now. It's a pretty busy spot in Brooklyn. So I think that would have been a cool place to have put it. If in the future, any baseball team or maybe football team, I think that, and I will do an NFL one as well, the West Side Stadium project that was originally built for the Jets, if one of those football teams could look to go back into the city, I would look at possibly building a football stadium around Barclays Center. I think that'd be a pretty cool spot. We'll talk about that in another video. Let's get to the next one. The Oakland A's 2005 Coliseum proposal. This was a very interesting venue because it reminded me a lot of Petco Park in San Diego with the warehouse design in the background. This would have been cool for the Oakland A's. Oakland A's would have been still Oakland's team. They're still trying to find a ballpark today, so maybe they need to go back to this design in the future. But this was going to be a proposed ballpark back in 2005, so almost 20 years ago. It was going to be one of those modern ballpark looks that took over the 90s and 2000s. So we know they've been trying to get a stadium for a long time. So there's been proposals to build the next current stadium in Fremont, San Jose, Narnia, but their best design, in my opinion, is a 35,000 seat gym proposed in 2005. The location was just north of the current Coliseum site on 66th Avenue, and the surrounding stadium was to include a ballpark village with apartments and condominiums, as well as a hotel built into the ballpark in left field. That's the structure I was talking about with the warehouse that's in the San Diego ballpark currently, the Petco Park. The plan was abandoned later that year when the owners of the land refused to sell the A's to new owner Lou Wolf, and he was unable to get the city of Oakland to acquire the land for him. And this one, out of a lot of the non-dome or not of the non-roof structure ballparks, this was probably one of the best ones that I've seen from the renderings. And it's a shame that they didn't build this. There was going to be a pool on top of that hotel building, by the way, too. That would have been really cool to see that just be a feature in this stadium, man. Man. And we know how ugly the Oakland Coliseum is. We're still living with it now. It's a shame that this ballpark never got built, man. Very much of a shame that this one never got built. So I would love for them to still maybe revisit this plan. The A's are still looking for a ballpark. Rumors, that they could be moving to Las Vegas. Hopefully this ballpark, wherever the A's are, I hope they stay in Oakland personally, especially with them losing the Raiders and the Warriors. I hope they are able to get this done in Oakland, but hey, if not, it'd be great to see something similar to the redesign, the designs of this ballpark, man. So it's a shame with this one though. The Rays ballpark. I remember this one, man. So the Tampa Bay Rays management suggested this design in 2007. It would have sat on Al Lang Field, just opposite of the Demon's Landing in the Mojave River. It's light, airy design with a sail-like retractable roof. And that was always one thing that I noticed about it. The sail-like retractable roof design. And an open side overlooking the water was intended to seat 34,000 spectators. The plan did gain momentum and was scheduled to open in 2012, but was shelved in 2008 after running into funding problems. And to this day, Tampa has still not gotten a ballpark to replace that hideous-looking Tropicana field down there in St. Petersburg. They're still playing it. It's just like the Coliseum situation in Oakland, man. These beautiful ballparks that never got built, and we're stuck with what we got now. And now with the Rays being, still not able to this day, you will figure a city like Tampa will be able to build a new stadium with ease. But they just have not been able to build it now. There could be rumors that Montreal Expos get back in the picture. Later in the decade, they might get their team back in Montreal to replace the Rays, maybe Nashville. I think there's going to be some definite MLB expansion either by the end of the decade or towards the next decade. You're going to definitely see a team in Nashville, maybe Montreal, maybe Vancouver, some other places that don't have a team, Portland. But I definitely think you're going to see about 2 teams enter the league around that time. But this Rays ballpark was going to be magnificent. It was going to be gorgeous. I love the sailboat design that they had for this one. It was a real shame that one never got built, man. That one was really pretty. That was going to be a really pretty stadium. And, you got a chance to see the water of Port Charlotte right next to it. Just wasn't enough political support at the time to get it built, unfortunately. So it never got built, guys. But if the Rays are still going to build a stadium, I think it should be this design and right near the waterfront. They just have to figure it out with the politics, man. Just get it built, and they just got to get it figured out. And the boats and all that would have been so cool, man. That would have been so cool to see that. It's a shame it never got built. I'm glad the Marlins were able to get their ballpark built 10 years ago, 10 plus years ago, man. Because, man, just imagine if they were still playing in Hard Rock Stadium, which got redesigned, by the way. Imagine if they were still playing in that, bro. So that's crazy. Let's get on to the next stadium. Let's go to Chicago. So the Chicago Dome, man, this was going to be an interesting project. So the Chicago Dome was going to get built really close to downtown Chicago. And you're going to be able to see all the skyscrapers in the background. That's one thing that we don't have right now in Chicago, is that we don't have, outside of Soldier Field, where you can see the skyline in the background. And I'm still kind of hoping the Bears never move to the suburbs, because I still love to see the backdrop of the Chicago skyline in the background on Soldier Field. But, so famed skyscraper architects Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill offered up a 1985 proposal to keep the White Sox in town. Remember, there was rumors that the White Sox were going to move to Tampa Bay, who ended up building the Tropicana Field in 1990, right before the Comiskey Park in 1991. So there was a real threat of the White Sox potentially moving to Florida. So they were going to build this 54-seat baseball stadium for the White Sox, which would have lived next door to a 78,000 capacity football stadium where the Bears were originally going to also play at for the Bears. So with the 2 venues sharing a movable roof, which was going to be interesting. The idea never made it beyond the concept stage, unable to change the skyline of Chicago's west side, where the Bulls and Blackhawks play at the United Center right now. The Sox would move to the new Comiskey Park, now guarantee rate field, in 1991, while the Bears remain stalwart at Soldier Field, looking to move to the suburbs right now. But this was going to get built. It was going to be a 45-seat retractable roof stadium. It was going to be 30 miles west of Comiskey Park, and it was the roof was removed, and it was going to become an open-air stadium. The ballpark was put in for a vote of the citizens of Addison, and it failed by 43 votes. So it never got built. Comiskey got built instead a few years later, and it kept the Sox in town to this day, 30 years later. So I think had that gotten built, it would have been interesting to see the Bears actually play indoors at that time. Could you imagine? Because I think Mike Ditka probably still would have been the coach of the Bears, because it probably would have opened up like in the late 80s, early 90s. That would have been very interesting had that gotten built. But for the White Sox, it would have had to be replaced by now if it ever got built. It was a very on the inside design just wasn't really cool. But one thing that I will say about this, I've always felt like the White Sox, even though they're the South Side's team, I feel like they need to move a little bit closer to downtown. Obviously, they struggle with attendance sometimes at the White Sox Stadium. And, not like the Cubs that play right in the heart of the north side, fill the ballpark up every day. It would have been cool. I think the White Sox should think about moving, if they ever move again, which I believe they will. They should think about moving downtown. I think that's, you got a lot of tourists and stuff like that. And it'll be more filled if you do it. Like, I don't know if they'll do a retractable roof structure or they'll keep it open doors, open air, but I think it'd be pretty cool, man. Let's move on to the next one. Denver Stadium for the Colorado Rockies. So this was interesting. This was an interesting situation in Denver. So in lower downtown, just a few blocks away from what is now called Coors Field, Jim Conrad proposed a new MLB stadium in 1990. The unusual design featuring 3 axes running out from the circle of the field itself, which was featured a helipad on its roof. These are some unique designs, bro. When looking through this, a plaza with landscaping would have run up to the main entrance, and the remaining space would have been filled with parking. So it would have been a new futuristic-looking retractable roof stadium with 3 spokes from the playing surface, so Denver Stadium could house parking, conventions, and more. Never got built. This World Trade Center looking thing was going to be in the heart of Denver. They ended up building Coors Field instead, which was probably a better idea. But I will say this. The one thing that I do like about it was very futuristic looking. I think it's a really good design maybe for something like an arena. If you ever did a new arena like this, I think that would have been more suitable than a baseball stadium. But I like the helipad feature on it. That would have been pretty cool. But looking at the outside of it, it looks pretty cool, though. It does. It looks pretty cool. I like the whole 3 axes running from both sides. But like I said, it would have fit more part for an arena look than it would a baseball stadium or even a football stadium. But I'm surprised some of these like designs haven't been copied into future stadiums for other cities and stuff like that and other sports. Very, very surprised. But Coors Field is so beautiful. So a good thing they never did build this. But it was something that they was going to build. And just a little fact, the Rockies did play at Mile High Stadium, home with the Denver Broncos back then. They played there for like 2 seasons, then they moved to the Coors in 1995. So they're still playing there to this day. It hasn't had to be replaced. And I think one of the things in Denver, too, is harder to build domes and like retractable roof type structures because of the thinner air. It would have been very hard to build that kind of stuff. So I don't think it would have been built. Boston Dome for the Red Sox, bro. Now this one was interesting, man. This one was very interesting. Could you imagine if this got built in Fenway Park was a relic of the past, bro? Now, the planners of the Boston Dome made sure to cover all the bases. The stadium was proposed. This was actually proposed not that long after the Brooklyn Dome. 10 years later, it was proposed in 1965. It was intended to sit along the I-90 Massachusetts Turnpike and was to host baseball and football. So the Patriots are going to play here too. And this was before the Patriots ended up moving to Foxborough at Schaefer Stadium or Foxborough Stadium, and then now they play at Gillette Stadium. So it would have kept the Patriots in town, in the city. So with a separate arena for basketball, hockey, and even drag racing, the unique dome was made up of 12 diamond-shaped retractable roof parts that would all slide outwards and open in about 20 minutes. Outside, there was a plaza and plenty of parking for fans. So it was going to be something that was going to be the best solution to New England's all year round, all weather stadium, man. And it was a way to keep the Red Sox from worrying about moving to San Diego. Because remember, the Boston had also lost the Boston Braves. It's unthinkable to ever think that Boston will lose any other major 4 sports teams. But this was a serious problem back then. Like I said, the Braves moved to Milwaukee in the 50s. So they were about to lose the Red Sox at one point as well. All right, people don't realize they was about to lose the Red Sox at San Diego. San Diego ended up getting their team, which ended up being the San Diego Padres. So you can see how, especially back then in the 60s and 70s, how a lot of 50s, 60s, and 70s, like a lot of those expansion to the West Coast for a lot of leagues, you saw like the threats of some of those teams in popular cities, big cities, being threatened to move to places where we have teams now. The White Sox in Florida, stuff like that. Just really cool stuff. But the proposal never made it out of the 1966 legislature, and in decades to come, people will come to treasure Fenway Park and all of its quirks. Fenway Park and Wrigley Field were the same way. Like, both stadiums were not as revered as they would become. Fenway Stadium was not like that back then. So now it is. It's more of a museum now to the folks. So it was pretty interesting. But the only thing I will say to this, good thing they never moved out of Fenway. I would like to see some of Fenway get rebuilt though, but like in the future. But like, I would love to see the Patriots move back to Boston, bro. Like I hate suburban. Like I hate suburban stadiums. I hate suburban stadiums. Gillette Stadium is gorgeous though, but I hate the fact that they play so far away from Boston, and a lot of times with those suburban stadiums, it just doesn't feel like they play in the city, right? The city that they really play for, the heart of it. It's not as easy to get to for people and stuff like that. But that's just my own little rant. But it would have been cool for the Patriots to actually remain in the city of Boston, just like the other three sport teams. So, next stadium on this list, Pontiac Dome. I am a Detroit Lions fan, and man, oh man, this was an interesting product when I first read up on it. So, the Pontiac Silverdome outside of Detroit housed the NFL Lions for years, since 1975 through 2001, and lasted until it was demolished in 2017, though it was a creepy ruin for a few of its final years. However, the original plan for the Featherstone Road site included a baseball stadium too. And I actually did not know about this. I actually heard that the Tigers were thinking about moving from Tiger Stadium at one point. But I did not know about this project though. So this was very interesting when I did the research on it. With landscaping surrounding the dual stadium location, the plans show a rolling roof moving from over both stadiums as needed. Another interesting concept that surprisingly was never done in other venues like this. In the end, the Lions got a fixed dome roof dome for the Pontiac Silverdome, while the Tigers had to wait until 2000 to move to the beautiful Comerica Park to open downtown and replace the old Tiger Stadium. So Comerica was really one of the first of those Detroit stadiums, like Ford Field a couple of years later, that they still playing now for the Lions, and the new Little Caesars Arena that the Red Wings and the Pistons taking part in. So, but, you know, again, suburban stadiums, y'all know my gripe with it, as I always told y'all. So we had Pontiac, and we had Auburn Hills with the Pistons, where they played at for the Pistons from, like, what was it, 1988 through 2016? The Palace of Auburn Hills, where we had the infamous fight at. So that was interesting thing there. But what was really interesting about this project, so they both were going to share a roof structure, and I thought that this was a very unique thing. It was going to roll out to both venues, so they were both, you know, kind of open indoor, and then they were just going to have this big roof covering it. You know, I kind of wish they would have got built. I wish some of the other cities that have, you know, ballparks and stadiums right next to each other would use this concept. I think it'd be pretty cool to actually share a roof over each other. But I wonder if this would have got made, you know, how this would have impacted everything. The Tigers would have been playing indoors, you know, that would have been interesting as well. So, but it never got built, but it ended up birthing the Detroit Lions, who, you know, had been an outdoor team, just like the Vikings, for a lot of years before moving into the Silverdome. They moved into the Silverdome before the Vikings. The Vikings moved into the Metrodome in 1982. So, very interesting concept. And as a Lions fan, you know, it's not unusual to see them playing in the Dome. But, like, I think for the Tigers, it would have been interesting to see them also playing in the suburbs, too, you know, because the Tigers have always played in the city. So, at the same time, a good thing that this never got built as well for that reason. But it had no impact on the Lions, because the Lions ended up moving up there anyways, and they ended up moving back to the city where they are today. And I love Ford Field, so I'm glad that they were able to move into the city. Okay, guys, we got a few more structures here, man. I want to start out with the Giants San Jose proposal, man. This was an interesting proposal that would have taken the Giants out of that ugly Candlestick Stadium, man, a little sooner. But I will also say this, though. At least, they were able to move into their confines that they're in now. Instead of the horrendous stuff that they would have been playing in. But Oracle Park, very good solution. But they would have been able to move into something a little bit more better a few years earlier, though. And this was a gorgeous looking project, too. So in the 1990s, the San Francisco Giants were looking for a new home by whatever means necessary, even looking to the south at San Jose. And by the way, I don't like where the 49ers stadium is located. I think it's too far away from San Francisco. It's actually more closer to San Jose, the one in Santa Clara right now, Levi Stadium. They need to move again. They need to move again. But it's a beautiful stadium, though, but they need to move again, though. And I think it's already becoming a little bit outdated. So the Oakland A's had to give up territorial rights to the South Bay so the Giants could possibly move there to build this 45,000-seat baseball-only stadium, pending voter approval. It didn't pass, and the team nearly moved to Tampa Bay. Now, I did hear about that, too. So before Tampa Bay got their franchise, there was some other teams looking to move down there. It was a hot spot for a lot of MLB teams that kind of threatened cities. Hey, we're going to move to Tampa if you don't build us our stadium. So by the Giants ever didn't move to Tampa or San Jose, the design was very good. The design, it looked very good. And this was around the time when Camden Yards, had their stadium. Comiskey unfortunately just missed the boat on those modern-looking, structures or whatever. But this was going to be a fantastic-looking ballpark, though, had it gotten built. Because this is the, beginning of the retro ballparks era, making a comeback. But I actually think, from looking at this rendering, it look a little bit like Camden Yards and Jacobs Field at the same time, Progressive Field that they call it now. It looks similar to that, but I like this tree structure in the background. This is interesting. But Oracle Park is in the heart of the city. It is a beautiful, beautiful ballpark. Good thing they played there. They just had to wait 8 more years, and they were finally going to move. And good thing they stayed in San Francisco, didn't move to Tampa. But it was crazy how a lot of those teams were thinking about moving there, though. But I like this structure, man. I'm glad I was able to read up on it and see how they look. Let's go back down to Florida right now. Let's go to South Beach, man. So before they moved to Marlins Park in 2012 for the Florida Marlins, or Miami Marlins as they call them now, the team looked for years to find a new South Florida home. They were stuck playing in that ugly pro player stadium. Decent for football, but for baseball, oh my God. One site I liked was the Miami River, which was proposed in 1999. It was the site of the Metro Rail, I-95, and the Miami River that had a parasol roof that shaded the seating areas. The site was a strong candidate for the Marlins to consider, but in the end, the site where they currently play at Bicentennial Park, was chosen instead. Now, I think what I liked about it was the waterfront location. I think in Florida, I think it's just so perfect if you use a waterfront location. Marlins Park I like Marlins Park, man. Marlins Park is actually a cute looking dome structure. It may need to be replaced in the future, but I like it a lot. But the only thing that they missed with that one was that the waterfront structure would have been pretty good. Now, as far as like the outfield and stuff like that, this stadium didn't look too good from like what I'm looking from the renderings. I think Marlins Ballpark right now is a little bit better from the renderings, but this was going to have a waterfront, and that was where this one topped the current Marlins Park. But all in all, they were able to get at least unlike the Rays, they were able to get their new stadium, new ballpark, within a 20-year span of them being down there. And they didn't have to play forever at Miami Gardens, so they didn't have to play. They had to play there forever, and they were able to move. Let's go right back to Boston, guys. Let's go right back to Boston. So again, there was another threat to replace Fenway Park. There was going to be a new Fenway Park, but this one was going to be probably something that baseball fans in the New England area were going to like a lot more better than that Boston Dome project from the 60s. So I remember this project. So back in the late 90s, 1999 to be exact. But there was going to be pretty much a clone version of Fenway Park, but it was going to be in a whole new building. And this is what I was talking about before when I was talking about Boston earlier. Maybe needed to do some structure, because I think Wrigley's going to have to do it too with the other side of the stadium. At some point, they're going to have to fix the other side of the stadium because that shit is going to break down eventually. So, but the outfield and stuff like that, which has been done at Wrigley and Fenway, is okay. But the designs look really good for the new Fenway Park. I think it's a lot like, you know what it reminds me of? The new Yankee Stadium. And they basically kept the same design, just moved to a different spot so that they could keep it going for another 50 to 100 years. And I think that maybe Boston should have went on ahead and did it. But it's not like Fenway's is in this situation where it's going to break down. But I think eventually, the longer time goes on, it is going to break down, and they will need to get a new structure. But this was going to basically have the same look. So it wasn't going to be something that was going to be totally off. But I think there is a mystique just playing in an old stadium that has been around since the 1900s. So maybe it was a good thing that they never did build this. But the project was abandoned in 2002 altogether. The team decided to just renovate Fenway in 2011. And the park should have another 50 years left before it starts to break down again. But so I think we can safely say now, because the value of Fenway has gone up every single year. And I think it's safe to say now there's not going to be any plans to replace Fenway anytime soon, or maybe even in the future. So Fenway, I think they're going to celebrate another 50 to 100 years in the same spot. So, but unlike the Boston Dome, this is going to be a way better looking ballpark. Like I said, it was going to be like New Yankee Stadium. We're going to keep the same characteristics of the ballpark. The design and everything was going to be the same. It was just going to be new. Busch Stadium was kind of like the same thing in St. Louis, but they didn't keep but Busch Stadium had a cookie cutter look to it, so the outfield was completely redesigned, but they got the same names, Busch Stadium though, so it's kind of weird though. All right, we got about two more of these baseball structures, but I want to go over a very interesting project in Minneapolis. So before the Twins moved to Target Field in 2010, there were plans to move to a downtown ballpark near the river. And the Metrodome were revealed in 1997. The stadium would have had a retractable roof, a trend that was already being seen in one of the new ballparks that was going to be in Arizona that we now know today as Chase Field, Seattle, T-Mobile Park, Houston. I don't think, did they still call it Minute Maid Park, by the way, in Houston? I forgot. But, all those retractable structures. The plan, however, was absolutely flawed in terms of the complex. Also, Milwaukee's Miller Park, too, which is American Family Insurance Stadium. But the plan was absolutely flawed in terms of the complex funding process that ultimately upset fans, the public, and the politicians. And when you have that ingredient, you're not going to get the stadium built. And so the bill fund died in that same year, in 1997. The site will ultimately become the Guthrie Theater, which opened in 2006. The Twins, in the coming years, after a dome proposal, will go through more proposals, as well as a relocation in North Carolina. So the Twins, just like the Vikings, had to deal with this threat of moving out of Minneapolis or Minnesota altogether. It even being talked as a team. And remember, Minneapolis did lose to Minnesota Stars, their hockey team, to Dallas. So it wasn't like this was impossible. And they were even, remember the contract. I don't know how many of you guys remember the whole when a lot of the teams in Major League Baseball was being talked about being contracted. This was another one. But eventually the Twinkies did get their new stadium, and the rest is history at Target Field. I actually really like this design, though, especially for a retractable roof stadium. Kind of reminds me of the new one in Arlington right now, the new Texas Ranger Stadium in Arlington. Kind of reminds me of that a little bit, like especially on the outside, the way it was designed and everything like that. I think it would. I think it should have. To me, I don't really like Target Field. I don't really like Target Field. It's nothing really wrong with Target Field. I wish it was a dome. I think Minnesota just needed something that was a little bit more modern than Metrodome. Just like the Vikings. Vikings playing an extremely gorgeous ballpark. I would have loved for the Twins to had, not deal with these rain delays and snow and all this other stuff that they got to deal with by playing outside. I would have loved for them to actually just play indoors. And this look for me would be something that I would love for if the Toronto Blue Jays, whenever they replace the Rogers Center or rebuild it, I would love for them to do something like the Twins were planning on doing with their Minneapolis Dome, man. So I'm probably in the minority on that because a lot of y'all might like Target Field, and if y'all do, definitely tell me in the comments. But I definitely would have liked to have seen the Twinkies stay indoors. I think that was a unique thing that they always had in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, that they used to play indoors, and they lost that when they went back outdoors. So, that's probably one of my little quirks, man. That's a little different. So last ballpark that we're going to go over that never got built, we're going to go over the Labatt Park that was going to be in Montreal. I'm a Dome guy, but, I just wanted Olympic Stadium to get rebuilt. So I wasn't a huge fan of this open air structure that Montreal split. Like, especially in northern cities, I prefer domes and roofs in northern cities so you can avoid snow and rain and all this other terrible cold weather and all this other stuff that, baseball's played in, doing those like April, September, October and stuff like that. But before they left for Washington, D.C. in 2005, Montreal was trying to save their team, especially after the fan base, after the 94 strike, just abandoned the league and stopped going to games. But Labatt Park was supposed to be in the revitalization of the franchise and bring some new hope to the franchise after they suffered after that 94 strike. Now, there was more than one Labatt Park proposal for this list. The 2000 proposal was the better one. So you had that other structure, then you had this one. The park would have been located in downtown Montreal, would have been an outdoor park made of steel and glass with a capacity of 36,287 people. The project was, however, delayed over due to funding and issues. The plan ultimately died in the Expos relocated, like I said, to Washington, where they play today at the beautiful Nationals Park. A downtown ballpark would have been great for the Expos. And this is something that the reason why I did this one last was because, I'm obviously a Blue Jays fan, so I've got my eye on seeing if Montreal could get their team back one day. I was telling y'all, I think there's a way with the Rays, if they don't get it through expansion, to get one up there. But I just love downtown stadiums, and I think this would have been great. I think if they do one, that Minnesota project that had the roof over it, I think they're going to have a roof. I don't think they could do the whole outdoor thing in Canada. It's just too cold up there during April and stuff like that. So I don't think you can do the outdoor structure. Now, honestly, Olympic Stadium for like the first 10, 11 to 12 years was actually, I think before 1987 was actually open air and not, because remember, it was originally built for the 1976 Summer Olympics. So it was originally an open air stadium, and then they built the roof over it in the late 80s. So it wasn't always a dome. But I would love for them to revisit this. But I do think they need like a retractable structure similar to Rogers Center. And I think it'll revitalize Montreal. It'd be cool to see the Expos come back, man. There's a lot of good baseball fans in Montreal. When Toronto usually does a couple of games in Montreal during the spring training, the last two spring training games, they usually do a couple of games in Montreal, and they always sell them out. Always sell them out. That's how much people miss baseball in Montreal. I think people took it for granted at the time in Montreal during the 90s where they weren't really filling the stadium up. I think now they know, look, hey, ain't nobody playing with you if you don't fill these stadiums up, bro. You're going to move. So I do think Montreal will do a better job with the second incarnation of their major league franchise if they ever get one back. I think they will know we got to come in and fill it up. They should just, and at least do it like Blue Jays. The Blue Jays, if they don't go to the playoffs, they might start the season with maybe around 10 to 15,000 people, and then they get all the way up to like 30 to 40,000 in the summertime. That's how Montreal's attendance should be when they get a team back. Not that 5,000 seats, whatever we were seeing at the Olympic Stadium. Like, no, we can't do that again. So I think it will be interesting. I hope they do get their chance. If they don't get their chance, I think Vancouver will be another good option for a baseball team. Give Seattle a nearby neighbor. If they can't get Portland, give them Vancouver. I think that would be really cool for them to have a rivalry with Vancouver as well. So let's see what happens. See if Canada get another team up there. But I will be back in a second to wrap this video up. So guys, if you want to support the channel, this is one of the easiest ways that you can pay. I know for a lot of people, some people don't have the Cash App, they don't have PayPal, they don't have maybe they don't want to pay through Google as well. This is one of the best ways that you could pay. All you need is a credit card or debit card. You can pay on Buy Me a Coffee. This is a site where you can pay anybody and buy them a coffee. And basically how it works is you go to the page. This is our page here. You can see our post here and everything like that. And we will start posting videos and stuff like that when you come over to this page. But if you want to buy somebody a coffee, you have these options here. So there's some default options here. So the first option is $5. So this is the lowest that you could pay on Buy Me a Coffee. So you can pay somebody. So if you hit 3, it's going to be 15. If you hit 5, it's going to be 25. Now you can hit any number in here. So if you hit 2, it's going to be 10. If you hit 4, it's going to be 20. So any number in here, 6 is going to be 30. It's in multiples of 5. So every number you hit is going to be every 5 numbers. So if you hit 10, it's going to be 50. So 10 times 5 is 50. So just times it by the number you want to put in by 5. And that'll give you what you'll put in. So if you want to pay the channel 50, you'll put in 10 here. If you want to pay 100, it'll be 20 times 5, so you'll put in 20 here. So like I said, it's in multiples of 5. 15 times 3 is 75, so you want to pay 75. That's how you would do it. So the lowest is 5, but you enter the number in, and that's how you'll pay going forward to Buy Me a Coffee. So if this is the best way for you guys to want to show your appreciation and you don't have the Cash App, you don't want to pay through Google, you don't want to pay through, I don't have a PayPal, but like I know other people have that, you can go through here. Thank you guys. Hopefully I will see your guys' donation and I will shout you out. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I definitely wanted to try something new on this channel and kind of get my foot into the sports foray with retro stuff. So like I said, I'm going to make one for the NFL, I'm going to do an arena one. I will probably do a second volume for this one. If this one does really well, you guys tell me about some other venues that I didn't go over in this video. I will definitely add them. I'll probably just redo this and I'll probably just redo this and add those venues into that video and get my thoughts on it or whatever. And I also plan on doing like a future ballparks that may get built in the future. Like I will do one of those videos as well. But hopefully we get the support on this one. And I'll do more for y'all. Thank y'all for coming over here, man. Really appreciate it. And I hope you guys watch my other videos. I got Battle on Network Stars for those of y'all that know about Battle on Network Stars from the 70s and 80s. Hopefully y'all watch those videos as well. And thank you guys very much. Thank you for watching Retro Warehouse.